If we go back in history, around the late 13th and early 14th century, we would come to know a vast empire of Mongols. When Genghis Khan rose to power in 1206, he sowed the seeds of the Mongol era. Due to their united policies and ruthless wars, Mongols became able to control such an enormous area of land. Reaching the pinnacle in the 14th century, Mongols seized and annexed a number of other great empires in Asia and Europe. The Mongol Empire of the 13th and 14th centuries was the largest continuous land empire in history. Originating in Mongolia in East Asia, the Mongol Empire at its height stretched from the Sea of Japan to parts of Eastern Europe, extending northward into parts of the Arctic, eastward and southward into the Indian subcontinent, mainland Southeast Asia, and the Iranian plateau, and westward as far as the Levant and the Carpathian Mountains. Hey everybody, welcome back to another Whispered Facts episode, and today we're covering the topic of the Mongol Empire. And this is a topic that I know next to nothing about, so I'm really interested to learn more about this particular topic, and I hope that you guys are as well. And be sure to stick around until the end of the video, as there will be 5 multiple choice quiz questions to test your knowledge on the video topic itself. So, once again, it's time to lay back, relax, and let yourself drift away as I whisper facts about the Mongol Empire. The Mongol Empire was founded in 1206 when Temujin, son of a Mongol chieftain, assumed power and changed his name to Genghis Khan, styled as Genghis Khan in the West and meaning universal ruler. The young warrior had already defeated the Mongols' most powerful leader and fomented dissatisfaction among his people's aristocracy, but he proved to be one of history's greatest leaders. At the time, Mongolia's nomadic farmers relied on the land to sustain them. Their flocks of goats, sheep, horses, and other animals were dependent on abundant grass and water, and Mongols had to travel frequently to sustain them. Drought and disease could wipe out their livelihoods quickly. Genghis Khan united Mongolia's tribes and supported China's peasant economy by stabilizing taxes and establishing rural cooperatives. He reformed his people's laws and ushered in a military feudal form of government. He embraced trade and religious freedom and adopted advanced technology of the time, such as stirrups, compass chances are that I'm going to mispronounce some words in this video. I apologise for that, but I will do my very best to pronounce the words as best I can. Okay, so that was a very brief history on when the empire was founded and how Genghis Khan came to be in power. And even though history is one of my weaker areas, I know who Genghis Khan was, obviously, which shows what an influential figure he was throughout history. After the British Empire, the Mongol Empire was the largest empire in the world during the time of its largest extent. It covered a vast area of 23 million square kilometers, about 16% of the total land area of the world. Wow, that is astonishing. Just over 16% of the world was once ruled by the Mongols. That is incredible. From 1207 to 1210 AD, Mongols carried out wars against the Western Shah, which ruled northwest China and some parts of Tibet. The Shah surrendered to Genghis in 1210. In 1211, Genghis Khan and his army crossed the Gobi Desert and fought against the Qin dynasty in northern China. In 1215 AD, Mongols conquered Chengdu, the capital of the Qin dynasty. Mongols were excellent horse riders, swimmers, archers, swordsmen, spear hunters, etc. Due to their great soldiership, they had a fearsome reputation at that time. Yeah, so it sounds like they were just about the perfect warrior, you could say. The Mongol success rested on a complex new military structure and new military tactics like arrow storms, amassing huge arsenals, engaging in repeated hit-and-run barrages, delayed sieges, and psychological warfare. The warriors were assisted by new technologies like the stirrup and technological and tactical innovations they adopted from the people they conquered. Mongols were notoriously renowned for their ruthless nature in the battle. Wherever they went, they destroyed everything and mercilessly murdered people to conquer the kingdoms. Mongols were masters of strategies. During the time of battle, they made a perfect strategy to conquer other kingdoms, and most of the time, their strategies paid off. Their important step in the battle was to encircle and trigger the fear in the mind of the enemy. And I think that it must have been absolutely terrifying at that time for people in places that they invaded. You'd basically be living in constant fear, I think. I can't even begin to imagine the terror that people varying from very hot to very cold. In childhood, they were taught war skills by their parents. These are all reasons behind their success in creating a huge empire in Eurasia. According to the Guardian report, Genghis Khan and his army killed an estimated 40 million people during their war campaigns. Mongols were afraid of being taken over, so they exterminated many races across Eurasia. Yeah, so it sounds like they were so merciless because of the fear of losing the control that they had, so they simply wiped out all that came before them. Despite its reputation for brutal warfare, the Mongol Empire briefly enabled peace, stability, trade, and protected travel under a period of Pax Mongolica, or Mongol peace, beginning in about 1279 and lasting until the empire's end. There was a written law in the Mongolian society called Yasa, which was written by Tata Jungo, one of Genghis Khan's most loyal advisors. Its purpose was to maintain peace and order among Mongols. Mongols were wanderers by nature, so efficient communication between their leaders and officers was both vital and extremely difficult. They solved this issue by inventing a postal system called Yam. It was a vast collection of postal stations with dedicated messengers delivering mail, intelligence reports, and important news from station to station. These stations were about 24 to 64 kilometers apart and were kept constantly staffed. At one point, there were at least 1,400 stations in China alone, and the messengers had 50,000 fresh horses at their disposal. Wow, I love this fact, and it makes a lot of sense. Obviously, back at that time, there were no phones or electricity, so communicating over such a vast distance was difficult. So I think that's amazing that they set up this very well-run postal service to communicate. Say what you will about the Mongols, but it's clear that they were an incredibly well-oiled unit with everyone playing their part, which is why they were able to rule for such a long time and over such a vast area. Despite ruthlessness, Mongols were religious. Initially, they believed in Tengrism and shamanism, Central Asian religions. However, later they converted into Buddhism and Islam. One of the most ruthless yet efficient parts of Genghis Khan's reign was the brutal conquest of the Silk Road, the main trade route between Asia and Europe, and one of the largest sources of income for the Mongol Empire. 6,437-kilometer route, he adopted a secondary strategy. Genghis Khan started destroying every single Arabic and Turkish settlement on the road until every city and oasis on the whole stretch was either in ruins or on their knees before him. This took a lot of time, and he did not live to see his plan take full effect. But once the Mongols finally gained control of the route, they hung on to it. The Silk Road was entirely under Mongol control for the majority of the 14th and 15th centuries. Kublai Khan was the grandson of Genghis Khan, who founded Yuan dynasty and reigned between 1260 AD and 1294 AD. In 1269, he founded the Mongolian language school. The great traveller and explorer Marco Polo came to his court in the 1270s. He unsuccessfully invaded Japan 2 times, in 1274 and again in 1281. Timur was the grandson who succeeded him as the next Yuan emperor and the great Mongol Khan. During the reign of Monkey and Kublai Khan, art and architecture flourished. They emphasized the Mongol and Persian architecture around in modern-day Mongolia and China, and focused on the construction of the monasteries, buildings, mosques, roads, canals, trade routes, and other infrastructure. Historians tend to portray Mongol men as fearsome and mighty conquerors, but the women are often ignored. In the Mongol civilization, it was actually the women who called the shots. While their men were busy fighting battles, the women kept the economy going and held some of the highest positions in their shamanistic religion. This put the Mongol ladies in a position of power that their European contemporaries could only dream about. I think this is an interesting point and a very important point as well, because what I have seen of Mongols in movies and TV is very heavily focused on the men, particularly the warriors, so it's interesting to hear that the women in fact played a very important role. The Mongols decided very early on that in order to conquer a giant empire, they had to accept the habits of the people they conquered. They were happy to let their subjects keep their religion and important cultural habits, and actually actively encourage this with things like tax reductions for priests. Since Mongols themselves had a very open and relaxed attitude toward religion, this cost them practically nothing and provided a valuable tool in keeping the conquered nations content. Mongols were occasionally referred to as Tatar this was originally derived from Tsatsa. However, when people realized this sounded a lot like Tartarus, Roman mythology's variation of hell, they started calling Mongols Tatars, meaning demons from hell. The Tatar name is still in use, though it is not quite as threatening anymore. Today, Tatar refers to ethnically Turkish people who live in Russia, Kazakhstan, and Siberia. Yeah, I think that is pretty terrifying, to be honest, but very accurate at the same time. Ming dynasty of China took over the Yuan dynasty, which was founded by the great Mongol leader Kublai Khan, and this caused the end of the Mongol Empire in 1368 AD. Alright, so that concludes the facts portion of the video, and now we move on to the 5 multiple choice quiz questions, and I wish you the best of luck. So, question 1. According to the Guardian report, Genghis Khan and his army killed an estimated how many people during their war campaigns? Was it 20 million, 30 million, or 40 million people? Well, if you said 40 million, well done, you are correct for the first question. Question 2. What was the name of the vast collection of postal stations set up for communication across large distances? Was it Yam, spelled Y-A-M, Tam, spelled T-A-M, or Sham, spelled Z-H-A-M? And the correct answer for this question is Yam. So well done if you got that one correct. Question 3. In what year did Kublai Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan, found the Mongolian language school? Was it 1259, 1269, or 1279? And that's quite a tricky one there, I think, but if you said 1269, then well done, you are correct. Question 4. In what century was the pinnacle of the Mongol Empire? Was it the 12th, the 13th, or the 14th century? Well, if you said the 14th century, well done on that one, you are correct. And finally, question 5. About what percentage of the earth did the empire cover at the peak of its reign? Was it 12%, 16%, or 20%? And if you said 16%, well done, you finished with a correct answer. So guys, that is just about it for this Whisper Facts episode on the Mongol Empire. But I really hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about this fearsome empire that ruled for such a long time. I really enjoyed this episode myself, I have to say, and it sparked my curiosity to learn even more about the Mongols. So I'm sure I'll be reading up a little bit more on it in the coming days. But if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button to support the channel, and consider subscribing if you're new around here. There's plenty more content like this